is Act of Worship, your source for commentary and discussion on worship, theology, and culture. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones. Thank you for joining me today on the Act of Worship podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones here with the Psalm Project. And so I am thrilled to be going through this project with you. And my hope and prayer is that a greater understanding of worship from God's people comes of this. The Psalms the book of Psalms has often been referred to as the hymnal of Israel. These were psalms, many of them written by David, but these were psalms that were used and utilized by Israelites in Israeli worship, Jewish worship, if you will. And so even beyond that, the early church utilized the psalms. And Paul references encouraging one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And I believe that when he said Psalms, he was referring to the book of Psalms. And so hopefully this is beneficial for you. And so here we are at Psalm 20. Yes, it's taking a while. We only have 130 more to go. And you know what? I'm going to take my time. That's okay. And here we are at Psalm 20. Psalm 20. And this is entitled Trust in the Name of the Lord Our God. It's a psalm of David. And the commentary is not going to be very much today, but it will give you a little bit. I have set it in a 6/8 time. It gives it kind of a joyous, rejoicing feel. And so let me read the psalm for you. Here is Psalm 20. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favor your burnt sacrifices. May he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all your plans. May we shout for joy over your salvation and in the name of our God set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving might of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They collapse and fall, but we rise and stand upright. O Lord, save the King. May he answer us when we call. So let's break this down and look at it. In verse 1, may the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. You here is referring to the king. The congregation calls upon the Lord to bless the king as he sets out for war. David wrote many of his psalms in times of war or in distress. And so the blessings in these verses are also properly applied to New Testament believers in their battle of faith. The Apostle Paul refers to the Christian life often as a battle. And so here we are as Christians, New Testament Christians, waging war against the enemy in the same way that David was literally waging war against his enemies. And then he says in verse 2, may he send you help from the sanctuary. Let me read this from 1 Kings 8, 44 through 45. If your people go out to battle against their enemy by whatever way you shall send them, and they pray to the Lord toward the city that you have chosen and the house that I have built for your name, then hear in heaven their prayer and their plea and maintain their cause. So David here, he says, may he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. This is a reference to the people of God turning their prayers to God. And this is a specific command in 1 Kings. If your people, by whatever way you send them, they pray to the Lord toward the city that you have chosen and toward the house that I have built for your name. That's the sanctuary that it's referring to. Then hear in heaven their prayer and their plea and maintain their cause. It is symbolic, but this was a literal thing that that Israel was supposed to do. They were supposed to turn and face the temple, the house that I have built for your name. And then in heaven, hear their prayer and their plea. So it is symbolic, yes, but it is also literal in this case. And so David is recalling this. May you send help from the sanctuary and give support from Zion. It is symbolic in that he understands that their help only comes from the Lord, but it is literal as he is recalling what the people were told to do and what they were commanded to do. In verse 5, may we shout for joy over your salvation. The Psalms contain hymns of praise sung to God often after victories. Two examples of these are, we haven't gone over them yet, but Psalm 24 and Psalm 98. And these are psalms that were sung after victories in battle. And so David is referencing that type of thing here. And then in verses 6 through 8, David is referencing Israel and how they will win the battle because of the Lord's presence. Israel's trust is rooted in God's promise to protect his people in warfare when they are obedient to his commands. You see that in Deuteronomy 7 and in Deuteronomy 20. He says, I know that the Lord saves his anointed in verse 6. The Davidic King, anticipating the son of David who reigns forever, Jesus Christ. He is referring again, as we've already looked at, the anointed of God. In verse 7, some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. The believer's rescue from sin and Satan, like Israel's deliverance from enemies, this is how we can relate to Israel even now. It is grounded in God's trustworthiness. And so this is a psalm that praises the people of God trusting in the name of the Lord. It made a great musical setting, and so I would like you to worship through this as your heart is attentive and meditates on this. May you worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness through Psalm 20. So thank you for listening today to the Active Worship Podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones.
The Lord reply in your distress. May Jacob's God defend you then, and from his place of holiness both strength and help from Zion send. May he accept your sacrifice and all your offerings bear in mind. May he grant all your heart's delights, fulfilling all you have designed. In your salvation we'll rejoice, in our God's name our banners raise. May the Lord always hear your voice, grant all you ask through all your days. I know now that the Lord defends and saves his own anointed king. From holy heaven he answers sins, his right hand saving power will bring. I trust in chariots some proclaim, and some in horses take their pride, but we will boast and praise the name, the Lord our God, and none beside. While we are raised and upright stand, our foes are made to bow and fall. Oh, save the